Welcome to Oh My Menses, a digital space dedicated to all things menstruality, periods, hormones, and cycle-informed living. Join me, Corinda, naturopath and fertility educator, as we explore topics that we probably don't hear about enough. From stories of menarche, birth control, and common period problems to menstrual shame, sex, fertility, and the moon, if it's about the human female experience, I probably talk about it. This is a place of sharing, remembering, learning, and unlearning, where we come together and reclaim our cyclical power. So sit back, relax, let's all connect with our wombs, and remember our brilliant cyclical nature. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Oh My Menses. Today with something a little bit different that I told myself I would do even if it felt uncomfortable. It's a little bit of a behind the scenes. What is it? What am I wanting to get across with this episode / reaction video / experiment? So I guess I'll tell you what it is. I am going to react to a video of myself having a bit of an emotional crisis that occurred during menstruation. And it includes how I was processing at the time, like what I did to help process the difficult emotion. And once I calmed down after recording the video, I thought I would really love to have my non-menstruating self watch that video back and do commentary on it. So this is super vulnerable. And when I originally recorded myself going through this intense experience, it was namely just for myself. I like to journal. I like to do video journal logs to myself. I like to do audio messages to myself. And I had a thought of like, I don't usually record or keep track of things when they are feeling this intense. And it's just something that I wanted to like keep. And I thought this could be a really important part of my healing journey. And I think the reason I want to share it with you is to show you like in real time what messy, difficult emotions can look like. Especially, I mean, obviously this is Oh My Menses, so I especially wanted to show you what it can look like in the context of the menstrual phase and how just heaviness can come up through the menstrual phase that's asking to be shed, that's asking to be released. So I'd love to share it with you with that context in mind. And yeah, just showing you, again, real time, what it looks like to have compassion for past versions of yourself. This is a very recent clip of me. This is from the start of the cycle that I'm currently in. So it's recent, but it's still me from the past. And I want to challenge myself to have self-compassion. I want to see how I react to myself in emotional distress. And I want to see if I can unpack what was going through my mind at the time and how now, like, so I'm like in my luteal phase, I think. Ovulation hasn't been confirmed. My original idea was to, when I was ovulating, when I was like at the peak of my cycle, react to this video when I was like at the lowest of my cycle, because I just thought that would be a really interesting contrast. But I'm not feeling super premenstrual. I'm certainly not in my peak, but I'm definitely not feeling how I was in this video that I'm going to play. So I just felt called to like really play with like the idea of contrast and polarity in that manner. Like, how can I show up for myself and respond to myself with compassion, even though I'm not feeling what this version of Corinda was feeling in the video. And I think also at the same time, you'll get a little behind the scenes of some of my coping strategies. I hope that this video will be a big permission slip to scream into a pillow if you feel the need to. I think more of us should be screaming into pillows, and I'm not even joking. I know that sounds like hyperbolic. I'm not even joking. So let's see how we go without further ado. I'm also just trying to remember like the context of what I was even feeling. I was crying a lot. I remember this feeling of just like absolute density. And so I guess the first thing here, if you feel heaviness and crappiness in your premenstrual phase or while you're bleeding, make space to let yourself cry. A lot of us are taught to suppress tears. A lot of us are taught when we're young that it's not safe to cry. That was certainly the case for me. I'll just pause that there for a sec to talk about the crying piece. And I'm sure many of you can relate to this as well. I was the sensitive, sooky child. I was always described as a really happy baby. Like my mum would always tell me that she could never tell when I was sick or if I was sick when I was a baby, because I was always just like so happy and like go with the flow. But then when I started to get old enough, I guess, to develop more of a personality, I guess it's like that kind of age where there's enough time has passed to be able to see the result of environmental stresses and attachment styling based on what your parents are like to you come out. So when I was young, but not a baby, so toddler, very, very early primary school, I had pretty severe separation anxiety. And so anything, and I guess that was even more broader than that, like anything that was new to me, like going to someone's house, meeting new people, going to a new like public place, even if it was meant to be a fun activity, I did not want a bar of it. If there was any degree of separation between like me and my mum or like whoever the safest family member felt like at that time, I just remember crying a lot. And then that pattern, I guess, continued, and I got old enough to a point to remembering like the adults around me letting me know that it was just a burden that I was crying. Especially as I got older into primary school, my anxiety and whatever I was feeling was just a burden. And I'll also say that like there was no point where any of the adults around me tried to really understand what I was experiencing, what I was feeling. It was like I was a cute kid and pretty well behaved, but I was sensitive and I would cry, but like, oh, I'm a baby and I'm young, so like it's fine. And then I was still a child, but I got old enough that it was like, okay, like Corinda, you should be over this now. Like it's just a burden, and it's just a weight on our social life that you have these issues and that you cry a lot. And if anyone wanted to, and when I'm saying anyone, I'm talking about my parents. But if anyone wanted to, put me down, it would, the easy blow would be to, like call me a sook, like to say that I was too sensitive, to say that I was a crybaby. What are you crying for? Like that's, don't be stupid. No one was comfortable with me crying, which reflects the adult's own insecurity with like letting themselves feel the emotion that they're actually feeling internally, and feeling safe enough to let it out and express it. So I was by me showing my emotion and crying and them not understanding it, it was triggering their own insecurity that they had, and triggering and shining a light on their own blocks towards or against emotional expression. Which I think is a big reason why I think it happens a lot when people have kids. I feel like those kids will often have some kind of personality trait or behavioral expression that shines a light on the parents' shadows. And that can be really triggering. And that's why I know parenthood is a whole fucking rite of passage and initiation, and can be a really big part of your healing work if you let it. But a lot of people don't have the tools to allow it to be, or to facilitate it to be healing. And it's just seen as a big challenge and a burden, and parents get angry at their kids. This is a long rant. It was also to the point where, like, my shout out, like, my fucking year 5 teacher, I had moved primary schools. Also, shout out anyone I went to primary school with who's listening to this. You'll be like, I remember when Corinda was like that. Crying at school. So I started at a new school in year 5, and my teacher would literally call me a Suki Lala. It was so weird because, like, she would comfort me, like, she would let me, like, sit on her lap. She would, like, okay, come on, come here. But again, the overarching message was, this is stupid. You're stupid for crying. You should not be crying. What are you even worried about? What are you even scared of? There's nothing to be anxious about. And then, yeah, on harsher days, oh, you're just the Suki Lala. And it got to the point where, and again, double bonus points to anyone who went to primary school with me and remembers this. So you know how, I don't know if this was a general thing, but like in the morning at primary school, once you got into the classroom, there might be 2 or 3 kids assigned to like set up the whiteboard or the blackboard for that day. So like, you know, you write the date in the top corner, and maybe you're like keeping tally of something, or you're writing the plan for the day. And it's just fun because like the kids get to set it up. So at one point, this teacher actually enforced like a no tears tally. I don't even know what else to call it, but she would like count the days that we as a class had with no tears. So the idea was to get like a streak of like a high streak, right? Of like having consecutive days where no child cried that day. And at the start of the year, I was really, really bad. And I was coming to school like crying every morning. There was like severe separation anxiety. My parents had just separated. I was at a new school, in a new place with new people. I did not feel safe. And I had no other resources other than to cry every morning because it just felt that overwhelming. That was my experience for the first at least 1.5, but maybe 2 terms of year 5. So she probably started at some time, maybe halfway through term 1. So obviously like the first half of the year, like it was just 0. It was just always 0 because I cried every day. So I was keeping the tally down. She would make a note of that. She would make it a point to say, oh, come on, like Corinda, you know, what's going on? Oh. And then it just became like a class joke, like, oh, look, Corinda's crying again, you know. And then after term 2, I found my groove. I had really good friends. Still really, really grateful for the people that I was friends with back then in year 5. If you're listening again, on the off chance that you're listening, you know who you are, and you still mean a lot to me. And I'm sending love to you, and I hope you're well. And then I really just got confident and had really great friends, and I was like, this is great. There was no reason to cry in the morning and feel anxious to go to school. I felt really, really good, which I'm glad that happened. And then sometimes a boy in the class would cry because they got injured when we were playing a sport for PE, or they got into a fight with another boy, or, you know, obviously boys have fucking emotions too. And I'm sure we were in a class full of, you know, a class of kids in the northern suburbs of Melbourne with just all happy, very, very functional families. You know, I'm sure there was a lot of shit behind the scenes going on. So, of course, kids are going to come to school with emotions. And then it just became a thing. When I wasn't the crier anymore, the boys were put down for crying if they cried. And that would ruin the no tears streak for my teacher, and she would crack the shits. All that is to say, me putting myself crying on display and watching myself cry and commentating on it is feels pretty radical and healing, and I'm glad I'm doing it. That's just a little backstory. Let's resume.
Alright, it's okay, Baba. It's okay. Wait.
Yeah, okay.
Wait.
Okay, so I'll pause that there. So I was leaning on my pillow for like just crying, like looking out the window and really like getting quite easily dissociated. And then I thought, I gotta let this out. And I was like, it's screaming into a pillow time. And so I'm like getting set up for that. And my dog, Leica, is also on the bed. So I'm like warning her, like, it's okay. Like, you know, because sometimes she can react, as we'll probably see. So I'm like, I go to do it. Yeah. And it's just tears. I wanted to channel the anger and frustration and rage that was like, that was residing within me. But it was almost like the memory that I'm getting is that like I was just sad. Like there was so much sadness and grief on the surface that wanted to come out. Yeah, that it was like, okay, get angry now. But I was just still in a real soft spot that it was just hard to. I can see myself like getting like serious, like between crying bouts, taking deep breaths. Usually a bout of crying would like come out on a deep exhale. So if you experience that, that can be a thing. Got my eyes closed. I'm taking deep breaths. Yeah, I wonder what I was thinking about here. Like I can tell, yeah, like the way I'm looking around, you can tell I'm thinking about something. But then I'll also say, like, when my eyes are darting around, I'm like, oh, okay, like, oh, what was she thinking? But then I can see when I'm just like staring, I'm like, oh, okay, she's dissociating a bit. Which could either be I'm going off like in the mind and zoning out of my environment, or it could also be that I'm like focusing on like an internal sensation that I'm feeling. What I would encourage is zoning in on the internal sensation, because that's what's going to get you through this emotional intensity rather than like distracting yourself mentally and zoning out mentally. And that dissociation, by the way, that zoning out is a protective mechanism because your nervous system is detecting, oh, this emotion is quite strong and intense and it feels uncomfortable and unsafe. So your brain just wants to like detach and dissociate. So that's why it's really important to, like, if you can, stay with your breath, keep taking deep breaths, and try not to avoid the emotion that's coming up. Try not to avoid the emotional expression. It's really interesting how quickly I'm going in and out of like big cry and then, okay, calm, taking some breaths. And then I'm looking at my dog and that's making me feel sensitive. Yeah. God, it looks like physical pain. This wasn't, I think this was day 1 or 2 of my cycle. So I was pretty heavily bleeding, but I distinctly recall not having like many or any menstrual cramps. So it wasn't a physically intense period. I can see there in my eyes, I am out to lunch. That's really interesting to witness. Oh, a bit of a deeper breath coming back. Okay. But the eyes are so like zoned out. Like they're staring at something, but I'm not concentrating on whatever I'm staring at. Okay, and then I came to, I look at the camera. Thinking, the eyes are darting around a bit. And then I'm like, it's time to release. I don't know if I'll play the audio for this, but I'm sure I can edit it in post, maybe. I don't know, future Corinda, figure it out. But I can tell that I'm resolved to like let this out through a scream now. That was good. And yeah, I can see Leica's nose like cutting in the frame. She's like, what's going on?
It's okay.
That's so funny. Leica starts to lick me as the camera goes off. I apologize to Laika for the intensity. Hey, it's editing Corinda here. So I'm just watching this back, editing this episode, and I didn't mute the second scream that I did, and I was commentating over it while the scream was happening. And as much as I would love to invite you to have your own screaming into a pillow session, I don't want to distress you with the sound of mine because it was really, really intense. But I did want to share with you what I was commentating on as I was listening to myself. That first scream that I did have muted was much more of a surface level one. It was like it was coming from like maybe my throat mostly, maybe just a little bit from my chest. And I took a breath. That second scream was so interesting to listen to because as I was watching and listening to myself, I could just tell and feel like how viscerally it came from somewhere deeper. It came from like my womb. It just kept going. It was just like one long one. It was guttural. It was, I mean, I feel like the perfect example and almost the definition of release, especially in the context of a womb related release. So it was really beautiful to witness. Just wanted to share that commentary with you. And that scream ends with Leica getting up from her lying position and like trying to sniff my face, like through between my face and the pillow, and like trying to get in there and lick my face. Very, very sweet. Very, very concerned. And then the camera falls back. So we'll pick up from there. Okay. So it ends with, let's get rid of that. So it ends with me holding my hand in the middle of my chest and like taking a breath. And even after the first scream, I'm not sure I said it while I was watching, but I could see in my face that there was relief. I was not, if we're going to use a wave analogy here, I was still in the ocean. I was still in the deep ocean, but I was treading water pretty well at this point. Whereas before letting out the emotions with the release of vocalization, screaming, crying, the waves were just crashing over me and it was feeling really, really intense. But by releasing it through my body, using my body as a release, it helped get me to a point of sufficient regulation that I could feel okay. And I do remember this day, just after doing that, I felt so much better. And this was like late in the afternoon. So after a good sleep, the next day I was just like so good to go. And it really felt like I could start my cycle. And another reason why this is so important to me, especially like for this phase of your cycle, consider your period, your bleeding phase, your menstrual phase as a shedding. Now, obviously there is the physical shedding of your uterine lining, your endometrium, and that comes out as menstrual blood. But there's always if something physical is happening, there's always an emotional mirror to that physical event. There's always like an emotional signature to what's happening physically. And for me, thinking about the menstrual phase, it is a time of like deep, deep, deep release. Like your lining is shedding so that it can start a new cycle, lay down a new canvas, a fresh canvas in order to grow life, right? Now, obviously that's from a physical sense, but let's even think of this as from a metaphysical and emotional and energetic perspective. Like there is this shedding in this dark, voidal time of your cycle so that you can harness your life force and bring into the world what you're desiring to bring in. That is, again, in the physical sense, it's okay. Conception. It's starting human life, right? Conceiving human life. But in other ways, it doesn't matter if you don't want, if children aren't on your radar or aren't a part of your picture or your goals at this time. Think of this energy as also being related to how you create your life. Anything at all that you want to bring into your current reality. This could be in the realm of spirituality, how you feel in terms of your purpose, feeling connected to a higher power, feeling connected to the divine, feeling connected to your inner power. It could be an emotional pattern that you'd like to work on, or that you'd like to release, or something that you would like to see more of in yourself, in your own life. It could be something that you want to see more of physically in your life. It could be about money. It could be about starting a creative project. The very, very start of your menstrual cycle, when you're bleeding, especially on the first couple of days, isn't necessarily about getting started on these projects and focusing on intention setting and goal setting and, getting into action. Although you may feel called to do that. If you feel genuinely called to do that, do it. But I find that first there must be a release, because if you are carrying old beliefs that aren't serving you, that are limiting your potential, old emotional patterns that are causing you to self-sabotage from the things that you really want in life, if you are holding on to or still enmeshed with habits that aren't serving your higher self, that aren't helping you create the life that you genuinely want, how is it that you can start a new cycle, set intentions that sound all well and good, without first letting go of that baggage that you're bringing in? And that baggage isn't just going to be from the one cycle before. Any period is an opportunity to release baggage from any stage of your life. We're not just going cycle to cycle. Like, obviously life and patterns and cyclical energy is much bigger than just the menstrual cycle, right? Every period is an opportunity to release anything that is no longer serving you. You have the benefit of your body going through this intense release, this physical shedding. Because it's happening physically, the energetic energy, the emotional imprint, the energetic signature behind what is happening physically is so strong compared to other times in your cycle where it might not feel as easy to let go of things. It might not feel as easy to really be with these uncomfortable emotions and let them out, physically let them out. Let yourself express them, let yourself feel them fully. Your body is showing you, hey, it's this time. This might be a really good time to release some of that shit that we've been holding on to. And it's really interesting and fascinating and tender to witness myself releasing something that, probably releasing a lot of things. I mean, by the way of that, crying and the screaming, I was releasing a lot. And I'm proud of past me for being dedicated enough to herself to create that space. I'm in my bedroom. I think this was after work. I was like, that's it. I need a timeout. I need to go into bed and tend to myself and feel the feels. Yeah. I'm feeling some awe. I'm just feeling some awe at human processing, emotional processing, the power of our nervous system. It's all really beautiful. As messy as it is, I love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way, and I'm happy to be comfortable with crying and releasing my emotions. And on that note, if you haven't screamed into a pillow, you gotta scream into a pillow. I don't know how else to tell you. Even if you think, okay, I should be more responsible about this. Obviously, self-responsibility Don't do anything just because someone told you to do it. Do things that feel right for you. Do things in a way that makes you feel safe in doing them. I'll say that. But sometimes the emotional baggage can be buried really, really deep. And it doesn't mean it doesn't have an effect on our lives. It can be, deep emotional baggage can be impacting our behaviors and our patterns in relationships and social scenarios and how we show up for life, how we show up for work, how we show up for ourselves. Just because it's not emotional shit that's on the surface, it still plays a major role in like every aspect of your life, right? So we won't get it twisted there. But what that means is that if it's buried deep, it might not feel urgent or pressing that you need to release it. So taking part in a somatic practice like screaming into a pillow, punching a pillow, kicking a pillow, thrashing pillows around a room, keep yourself safe, keep the people around you safe, can be that release that is needed deep down. That's just not the signal for the need and the urgency of that release just isn't super strong. Doesn't mean it's not needed. It just means that signal isn't coming through strong. You're not in like a crisis mode. You're not in like a really acute situation where your body's like, we need to get this feeling out of us. So by creating this space and dedicating time to sit with yourself, get curious about any emotions that are going on below the surface, getting curious about the sensations that are residing within your body, and then doing something like screaming into a pillow, you are giving yourself permission to release any shit that is no longer serving you. And you are also showing yourself, you are teaching yourself that it is in fact safe to have these releases and to have these emotional expressions. And this can be intensely powerful for you. I feel like for most people, but especially if you had an upbringing where emotions were suppressed, difficult things were swept under the rug, discomfort was avoided at all costs, your emotional expression wasn't encouraged, it was spoken against, it was pushed down. This can be a radical healing tool. Even if you've had past versions of yourself that wouldn't allow you to feel these emotions, it can be so liberating to take that power back and go, actually, it's human. And it is the most natural fucking thing to have emotions and to do things to express those emotions, feel those emotions, and let them out, discharge them from my physical body. It is one of the most natural things that you can do, especially as a human living in this day and age, right? So that can be really powerful to like reclaim a part of yourself that allows you to have that release. You're not suppressing your own emotions anymore. You're not pushing that shit back down. You are telling your current self and all those beautiful past versions of yourself that it is safe now and that you get to feel this, you get to release this. And that can be beautiful for inner child healing as well. I guess the other thing I want to mention there is that if you're not feeling like you urgently need a release, like screaming into a pillow or kicking and punching some things, again, safely, engaging in that behavior may bring up emotions that have been buried under layers, that have been lying deeper in the subconscious. So I just want you to know that, because I don't want you going into this thinking like, all right, Corinda said to try it. Like, I guess I'll try it. Like, let's see what happens. Well, it's great. Well, actually, that's a great open mindset to have in general. But I don't want you walking into it thinking like it can only be good in the moment. It's only going to feel good. It can bring up some seriously uncomfortable emotions. It may even bring up traumatic memories, things from your past. Now, yes, that is difficult, and I urge you to create a safe enough space where if that experience should happen for you, You were kept safe. The people around you are kept safe. You are resourced enough. You have people to call if you need. You have practitioners to call if you need emotional support to help you come out of whatever comes up, to help you process whatever comes up if you don't feel confident that you can do it on your own, because that's a big ask. That's a lot to do it on your own. It's heavy work. So just take that self-responsibility to set yourself up for success should that difficult scenario arise. I also want to throw a perspective shift there. Yes, if that happens to you, if traumatic memories come up, if intense emotions come up, if you have the kind of crying that feels like it will never stop, I promise you it will stop. But the other thing there is that yes, while those things are intense and uncomfortable, there is a gift, because if you weren't feeling much to start with, if you were maybe living in a kind of dissociated state or feeling a bit numb or not feeling like you could access the highs of your emotional spectrum or the lows, whatever comes up for you in that process of release is showing you where there is work to be done. It's highlighting the points of focus. It's highlighting areas for you to focus on. So in the moment of intense release, that might not be the best time to focus on those issues and try to process it all and figure it out then, right? It might not all happen that quickly. But it's giving you something to have on your radar and go, oh, that memory. Maybe I can do some therapy on that. Maybe I can work with a practitioner on that. That emotion. Oh, I don't have a great relationship with that emotion. I didn't expect that to be there. Maybe I'll seek the help of a counselor, a hypnotherapist, an NLP practitioner, a psychologist to support me through that and to help me understand that a bit better. And the purpose of this is to be able to let go of this sometimes invisible, sometimes visible baggage, limitations. I'm doing this pulling action because I feel like there's these things that can just, it's like holding you back from living your best life. That is the purpose of like engaging in this kind of work at all. And also for your emotional liberation in a world where, yeah, we talk about mental health a lot, but I still don't think people are really feeling their feelings. So I think anyone who's adding to the conversation of like, hey, it's okay to feel your feelings, I think it's important to put that out there for your fullest expression, for you to be able to live your most vital life, and for you to be emotionally liberated, not scared of any emotions that could come up for you because you've faced them. You've allowed them to come out and you've faced them. And that's a really brave and bold thing to do. And I just wanted to showcase how your menstrual phase can help you with that. Luteal phase is likely going to be showing you some deep, potentially dark shit as well when it comes to your emotional landscape too. In any case, I hope any ounce of any aspect of what I've shared in this episode is somehow useful to you, of benefit to you, makes you think about something differently, inspires you to try something new. If that has happened for you, feel free to let me know. Message me on Instagram, email me, reply to the Spotify question box, and let me know like how this episode impacted you. And I hope it was at least interesting to hear me talk about that particular part of my life and to watch myself have a little emotional breakdown. Because we're humans and humans gonna human, and I want to watch it. I want to watch humans human, and that includes myself and facing my own shit, sometimes in a public way. Yeah. I think there's a bit for me to integrate after this one. Anyway, may it be of benefit. Let me know what your thoughts and feelings are after this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Oh My Menses. If you have a special request of something you'd like to hear me talk about, or you have any questions that you want to ask me, please drop me a line at hello@corindaholistics.com.au. I would like to acknowledge the land and country on which I live, work and create, that of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I honour their connection to land, sea, flora and fauna across this country. I pay my respects to the elders of these communities, past, present and forthcoming.